Let us acknowledge that the land on which I stand is a territory of Treaty 13 known as the Toronto Purchase. Before the signing of the treaty, this land was occupied by the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. It's important to accept that we have a responsibility to protect, honor, and respect these traditional lands and its people by strengthening our ties with Indigenous communities from across Turtle Island.
I would like to take this time to respectfully acknowledge that I am gathering with all of you today on the lands of the Anishinaabe and Amam Iwineni people and the territory of the 1850 Robinson-Huron Treaty, as well as the 1923 Williams Treaties. It is important to acknowledge these people as they are the traditional guardians of this land that to this day remains unceded and continues to be home to them.
Monica and I would like to acknowledge that we are residing on traditional unceded ancestral territories of Stolo nations, particularly the Sumas and Matsuri tribes.
Reconciliation is not a status quo. Reconciliation is a turning in a completely different direction. And the turning is actually a challenging experience, an unsettling experience. That's also ultimately quite beautiful. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, friends. It's hard. I don't think anything that's worth doing is easy. And reconciliation is definitely not easy.
What's coming to mind is sharing about my experience with Europe, which I know with my faith community, which I know is a part of our next steps through this. But I think those will be unsettling conversations for some people, and for people I've known like my whole life. So maybe they'll be quite unsettled to hear me say things that they just wouldn't expect.
The Dene people didn't have words for property. So like acre, like land, things like that. And it shows how they were just so different, and the mentality was so contrasting. For me, it was incredible.
There was a similar understanding amongst other Indigenous groups that land, no one, you didn't own land. You used land, land was a gift, And so when you think about that in the concept of like how treaties were made, like how, if you're working with a group of people for whom the idea of even owning land it's not part of their narrative, it's not part of their story. And so if the Europeans are like, yes, you signed this thing, we own your land now, but you're making that agreement with someone who has no concept of land ownership and actually think of land as gift.
I didn't notice I had faced racism until age 35. And so it was really important at that point to know who and what I was. Today, many of our Indigenous youth understand who they are right from the get-go, and at a young age self-identify as being whatever nation they're from. And based on that, quite often when they interact with the settler community, experience that racism against them. And so they feel that sting at a much earlier age than I did. And then coming to the realization that this is who and how I was created as a Cree man. And once I realized that, it was like, the skin I'm in finally fit.
I come from Sri Lanka, so I've been in Canada for 2 years. I'm coming from a country that was colonized, so we have a complete different view about colonization. With all that, I want to learn more, but also at the same time, take action. So it's going to be a learning process.
Hey, let's walk this way together and let's learn together. Just much like your journey here at YARP is a journey of that, is learning together. And I think those are really cool and important moments in all of our lives that we get to build into and share.